Welcome back to the Weekly Driver podcast. My name is James Rea. I'm an automotive columnist for Bay Area News Group, and I publish the website, TheWeeklyDriver.com. My colleague and friend is Bruce Aldrich, and we have two guests today. Our first guest is a friend for a very long time. Haven't seen much of each other in recent times, but Tony and I kind of came through the ranks together 40 years ago or so, 45 years ago or so. Tony Bizjak is the transportation writer and does other things for the Sacramento Bee. And Tony recently did a video and a nice article about a new transportation mode in Sacramento, the gig car. So Tony, welcome to our podcast. How are you today?
I'm good, and thanks for having me.
Sure. Tony, I really enjoyed the video. It's a good launching spot. We're roughly the same age, and you had a video shot in kind of the new way of journalism about your experience with the gig car. So could you tell us a little bit overall what your thoughts were going in, if you had any notions of what you were going to do in the gig car and how it went for you?
Yeah, I mean, in reporting now, because we're online, and most of our readers are online. It's the new era, so we like to show rather than just write stories. And
yes.
So I knew right away, and I'm going to write a story about gig cars. People want to know, all right, what does the app look like? What does the car look like? And the car moves, so let's show it. Let's show it doing that. So I went out and rented a gig car that happened just to be parked across the street from the Bee, and drove it around and did the video, because part of what I want to do is show consumers, all right, here's the new product, here's a bit about, how you use it. And I thought, that's kind of just informational for them.
Yes.
Yeah. So, you ask me anything you want about it, but aside from it being a gig car and that being a new business model and that being really interesting what they're trying to do in the business world, it was the first time that I had driven an all-electric car.
Yes.
And I haven't paid much attention to things like what kind of power they have, but that thing had pickup. It was a Chevy Bolt, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That thing had pickup. I was almost like, that's too much pickup. You can go way too fast, way too quick on that thing on city streets, and it was fun, but it was also like, I don't think cars need to go this fast, this quick.
Yes, I noticed that, and it came through loud and clear in a very good way on your video. That this week I have one of the competitor cars. I have a Nissan Leaf, also all electric, not a gig car, but it also it accelerates quite well. It surprised me. But also I was curious to know about the feel of the car in terms of we're both in our 60s and driving a regular transmission car. For me, one of the first thoughts I had was that it seemed a little bit like a toy car for about 5 seconds. And then I realized it's anything but a toy car. It's very advanced, and all the technology is just fantastic to experience.
Yeah, but James, I don't know cars like you do, but it felt like a pretty sturdy regular car to me. I didn't, the fact that it was electric is something that it's interesting is that I was trying to listen. I think I heard noise, and so I thought electric cars the engine doesn't produce any noise, and so you tell me, do they actually put some pseudo fake engine noise in there so you can hear something happening?
Well, it's a little bit off topic, but not really. But that's been kind of controversial, particularly with people who are riding their bicycles or walking who can't hear the cars coming. So the answer to your question is yes, they have done some technology where they can put fake noise in the car so it actually makes a sound so people can hear it. It's pretty interesting. Going over to the app, before I let Bruce, I was curious to know, how did you find the app and the mathematics, if you will, of the transaction of the car? And we looked at the website, and there's so many facts and figures and different options for people who are trying this car. How did you find the ease or lack of ease with the application?
I guess this app was a little bit more complicated to even download and sign up for than your typical app that you're going to get for whatever varied uses you have for your phone. Is that because this one required me to put in, it was my, this was a few weeks ago, I forgot, my driver's license
Yes.
number, and so then they had to verify that, and so there was some glitch in mine, and I actually called them up, and then they immediately verified it. But I think that they say that you put in they can verify it very quickly in a matter of minutes. So if you wanted to rent a car and you hadn't signed up yet, you could actually sign up and then pretty soon be in the car. But that was just there seemed to be a few extra steps from what I typically have to do with apps. But once once the app was loaded, it's the same if you've use the jump bikes. The same system is that there's a map interface, and you can see where the nearest car is to you, and they try to even show you what's the estimated walking time to get to that car, so you get to choose. And they also say on there how much charge is left in that car, and I know that was meaningful to me on the jump bikes, because on a jump bike, the more charge in it, the stronger the motor actually feels. Maybe not the same with these cars, but anyway, I thought it was really easy when I went over to the car, and I just hit the button for that car, and it just unlocked the door just like that. It was almost, it was like, shouldn't this be a little harder to do?
That's great. That's great.
Yeah. I had a friend though, funny, that tried it out, and the cars are all exactly the same. They all look exactly the same, right? So
yes.
you have to distinguish, where your car is. The map's showing you that you're standing right in front of it. But he was on a block where there were two cars, a few feet apart, and he was trying to open one, and it wouldn't open. And it turned out he had reserved the one, a few parking spaces down, and which he didn't realize. They all, So anyway, getting in it, and I just hit the button and I'm gone. It was that fast. Now, the other thing about the interface, and I'll express ignorance here, is that when I was using it, I had that 2 free hours, and so I wasn't worrying about the cost.
Yes.
So I'm not clear, and maybe you guys have looked at the app to see. I had heard from some people that it wasn't obvious up front how much is this going to cost me, because you don't know how long your trip's going to be. And when I was doing it, it was, I think it was a base fee of $2.50, and then like 40 cents for every minute after that.
Yes.
So say you're thinking, I don't have a car, I'm not driving my car today. What do I do? Do I take an Uber, or do I take a gig? I'm not so sure how easy it is for Joe Average or somebody like me to upfront calculate, or which one's going to be cheaper or easier,
Yes.
And then maybe that's answered. Maybe you get on their app now, and it gives you a clearer idea of how much it's going to cost you to be, for the trip that you're going to take. I just don't recall that was something that I saw on the app when I was looking at it, and this was a few weeks ago.
No need to be sorry about it, because James and I looked at the website and it wasn't real clear either.
No.
We saw, by the mile numbers, hourly numbers, and then by the day. So I don't know, the $85 a day, did that include unlimited mileage or what? It wasn't clear.
Yes.
I imagine it does. They were saying to me that they will calculate, say, if you drive it, and then you hit a certain point, they will calculate, it's cheaper for you to do it by the hour right now than by the minute, and they will calculate that as your bill, so that for your sake, they're giving you the best rate.
Oh,
that's
nice.
Great to know.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. That's good knowledge.
And another thing, as I understand it, all the cars, at least in the Sacramento rollout with the Chevy Bolt with a B, have a double bike rack on top, right?
You see them all over. It's like they've been cloned. They're all the same. Yeah, they all have the bike rack, and I have not yet seen a bike on top of one of them. So, it gives that sporty image. And I think you can put a kayak up there too. There's a way to do that. But anyway, yeah, they all. The idea being, you could take it out of town, I guess, or what the funny thing about that is that they advertise these as one-way cars. So it's not, unlike I don't know what the zip cars. With these you grab the one closest to you, you drive it to a spot, you park it, and you're done with it. You don't even think about taking that car back on your return trip. If your return trip could be hours later, you're likely to find a different car. So, if you're going biking, it seems to me, all right, you park the car, you pick your bike out, you ride around for a while, I don't know. Anyway, so there.
Yes, yeah, and I think, Tony, that that would be your next video, since you were so natural on the first video, I think the next video would be you take another colleague and you go out on a mountain bike somewhere to Marin County, and then you have your bikes and you come back, the car's gone, then you have to ride your bike 5 miles to go find the next car. I'm having a little fun with it, but it would be a great video for somebody in a cycling magazine to do a video on taking the car for a bike ride.
That is interesting. The thing is, though, these gig cars right now are only in certain areas. They have these kind of what they call these home bases, right? So you have to pick up a car in the home zone and drop it off in the home zone. So in Sacramento, that home zone is somewhat the same one as the jump bike, which is the central city, and it leaks out to like East Sacramento and Land Park and some of the nearby neighborhoods, and they'll expand the zone later. But it means that if you're going to use these, you've got to park. You're going to find them in the zone, and you have to park them back in that zone. And so it means that I don't know. You have to think twice about even going out of town. You're going to have to keep that car and bring it all the way back. They also have the system in. They started it a couple of years ago in Oakland and Berkeley, so they have a gig home area there. Interesting. Those are not all electric cars. Those are, I think, Priuses. They're hybrid.
Yes.
I noticed that like in some of the areas where there are the hybrids, they say that the gas is free and they give you a gas code if you need to fill the car up. But these all electric Sacramento cars, who is responsible for charging? Do you have any idea, or where you charge them?
Well, they charge them. I mean, ideally for them is that you use it between charges, and then they come in the middle of the night and charge it. They have, this is part. And then I understand, and sorry that I don't know the details on this, but if you are using a car and it needs a charge, you can go get it charged, and they have some mechanism for how they would pay for that, not you. There are, for these electric cars, you're going to have to, for them to be more widely used, there's going to be need more charging stations, and we're seeing those. We're seeing more charging stations. All of us now. The new Rayleigh's near my house has got charging stations. That's something that's becoming more typical, in development, and so I think. I don't know. That's kind of always been the hindrance for electrical cars, is that it's not as easy to charge them, and the charges take a while. I think the gig cars might be part of evolving that forward. The gig cars are here because Sacramento got chosen as an Electrify America city. Have you guys heard about Electrify America?
A little bit, yes.
Little.
Yeah, that's where Volkswagen got in big trouble a few years ago for falsifying its smog tests on the diesels, and as their penalty, California required them to set up this Electrify America operation or subsidiary that needed to invest like $40 million into advancing the technology for electric cars, and Sacramento was chosen as the first city to be like an Electrify America city. So in it, they one of the things they've done is Electrify America is subsidizing charging stations in Sacramento, and that's part of what, and I think maybe even subsidizing a little bit of gigs arrival here. But it was that fact that Sacramento had become the first Electrify America city is what enabled or encouraged Gig to bring their operation up from the Bay Area and give it a try this month here.
You kind of answered a follow-up question I was going to have. Is it seems with the jump bikes and with gig and other alternative forms of transportation, the zip cars and other things, we have probably 20 different modes of transportation now in Sacramento. Is it because of exactly what you talked about, or is it because we're the state capital, or are there other reasons why we seem to be kind of, for lack of a better term, at the forefront of some of these new ways of getting around town or going out of town as well?
Yeah, I mean, you said it. You mentioned some of the reasons there. One is that we have the state capital, and I know with autonomous vehicles, there are some of the companies that are working on them. They'd like to get them here and show them off to the state legislators and drive down L Street. And so there's that, there's the seat of power and the regulatory stuff is here. So that makes the city a little bit more attractive to have a presence in. The mayor, Darrell Steinberg here, has this thing about wanting to bring new technology companies and new young workers to Sacramento, and so he's seen Electrify America and autonomous vehicle technology as kind of one of those growth areas that he wants them to be in Sacramento and grow here, just for our own economy and a younger workforce. Another thing is that we're close to the Bay Area, but we're Silicon Valley and the first Google cars are tested down there, but we're close and cheaper. So this is, if they're going to expand beyond the Bay Area, this is another good, easy place to be. And so those are, I guess, those are the key reasons why we actually are a city that has more of this new technology, or more people here experimenting with these new things than a lot of other cities. And finally, we're apparently a hot young city, and we're actually growing, and our economy is actually growing, and people have been noticing Sacramento nationally more lately. It's actually an attractive city in general.
So it's something we've all known for quite a while, but you're right. There is an influx of people who live in the Bay Area, work in the Bay Area, who find housing here, and the schools are pretty good. So maybe that all ties together in kind of the bigger picture. So all of that.
Yeah.
Hey, Tony, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's it. No, I'm
okay.
Good.
Well, great. Tony, Bizjak is the transportation writer for the Sacramento Bee, and if you have an online subscription to the Bee, you can check out his recent article. Been a couple of weeks now, I think, that you did the piece a couple of weeks ago, and the video is great. And he's at the forefront of a lot of these new technologies with different things that we have in Sacramento. I think the other day I counted 18 different ways you can get around. Even an old taxi cab kind of counts. But Tony, thanks for your insight today on our podcast. We really appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to you more articles on the new technology of Sacramento and the way that people get themselves around town. Thank you for being our guest.
Thank you, Tony.
Sure. Thank you, guys.
Okay, cheers.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
The Weekly Driver podcast gets support from AmericanTrucks.com. Visit www.americantrucks.com. And welcome back to the Weekly Driver podcast. Our second guest today is MIchael Blaskey of AAA in Walnut Creek. And Michael, welcome to our podcast. We're going to pick your brain today about all things about the new rental car, so to speak, the gig car that's found its way to the Bay Area and in Sacramento, particularly in just in the last month or two. So welcome to our podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Sure. We looked at the website this morning and a little bit late last night, and we could take this in a whole bunch of different directions, but could you give us a good overview of the gig car and what the theory is behind it, and in terms of what it provides and the costs involved, and a good overview for the public who might be thinking about alternative transportation?
Sure. Well, a couple of years ago, and even more than a couple of years ago, actually, but so 2 years ago, AAA Northern California launched Gig Car Share, the service. It's a one-way car share service, and we launched it here in the East Bay, San Francisco's East Bay, in Oakland and Berkeley. And so basically the concept behind this as a one-way car share is AAA is aware that the trends in transportation are changing. Private car ownership is trending down, and there's more interest and consumer demand for these kind of more convenient rideshare, car sharing type services. So we were interested in transportation as a service products, and so AAA Northern California launched a innovation lab a few years ago called A3 Ventures, and basically their goal is to develop new services for AAA that appeal to the next generation of AAA members. And so one of the first products that they created was this gig car share service. And so again, I told you it launched 2 years ago about Earth Day in the East Bay. We launched with, at the time, it was 250 hybrid electric Toyota Prius models.
Yes.
And so rapidly that program expanded. We ended up doubling the fleet in just about 9 months and added the cities of Albany and Alameda to the service. And we're now actually operating in San Francisco as well. It's a little bit different in San Francisco because the concept for gig car share is essentially a door-to-door car service. The reason it's different than other car rental services is that you don't have to go to a specific location to pick up a gig, and you don't have to return it to a specific location. There's a home zone essentially that you can see when you access Gig from your app that allows you to return the car basically anywhere in that home zone into any legal parking space. We have agreements with the cities that we operate in to basically pre-purchase parking spaces that allow us to basically have our members that they can drive up to any meter, end their trip, and they don't have to worry about paying a fee to keep the car there. They can just go on their way. So it's unique from other. Go ahead.
Wow, an agreement with the city not to get a parking ticket. I like it.
Exactly. So it takes away that hassle of having to feed the meter, or for some folks to worry about car insurance. You can either reduce your payment by reducing the number of cars in your household. We've had a lot of stories like that from our Oakland and Berkeley launch. The reason now to get to Sacramento and what you're probably more interested in. So we were looking for places that would be a good fit for our next city, basically, after launching with and operating with 500 cars in the East Bay. One of the ones that really interested us was Sacramento. Especially, Sacramento has been on a green energy strategy for their mobility programs over the last few years. The fact that the Electrify America had some funding to basically provide, that was really appealing as well. Because our intention is to launch a service that's really convenient, but also zero emission. We're trying to make a dent here into our environment by actually reducing the number of vehicle miles traveled and reducing the number of those old style vehicles on the road. We're really excited about the all electric type model. So by partnering with the City of Sacramento and Electrify America, we were able to launch an all electric service that will officially launch in about a week. But it's for all intents and purposes right now is fully operational.
And how many cars do you have here in Sacramento?
We have 260 all-electric gigs, they're all 2019 Chevy Bolts. So we're really excited. Have gotten really good feedback about how the car is performing and how the service is performing.
Like I mentioned, Michael, there's so many different areas, but where did the name come from? First off, that's a great name, gig car, and I know what a gig is. But is that the reason it's a job or to do a task, or where did the acronym come from?
It came from the acronym came from basically get in and go. So that's what we wanted the service to. Yeah. We wanted to convey that convenience factor, because that's what we feel like really differentiates this service, is that you can basically just go to your phone, call up your app and look at a Google Map type thing and see where all these cars are located and how close they are to you. So once you would hypothetically be looking at your phone app, you'd select a little blue gig, reserve it, and you have up to 30 minutes to basically go unlock the car and start your trip. So we think that convenience factor is huge.
Exactly. Yeah, I was thinking you might walk, half a block or half a mile, and by the time you get there, the car's gone. But you just told me the answer to that. You reserve it.
Exactly.
In the Bay Area, you mentioned, I think, 500 vehicles, and now in Sacramento. Have you had any studies done, or maybe you're in the process of doing a study on the age groups? How is the vehicle? How have the vehicles appealed? Is it millennials? Is it young working professionals? Is it some retirees? Is it all over the map?
It's a good mix. We've seen interest in the service from working moms or working families who wanted to reduce their because it can be very difficult to keep two cars in Oakland and Berkeley with the traffic and parking situation there. So we had interest in working families who wanted to reduce the number of cars they own from 2 to 1, so they would sell a car and then rely on gig for their day-to-day trips. But really, the average age is another reason why we were interested in this type of service, because we do know it appeals to a younger demographic. And the average age of a gig member is in the 20s, whereas the average age of a AAA member is in the 50s. So we were really, really interested to see right away that this is a service that appealed to millennials and younger generation that haven't, been raised with that same mindset that I was as a boy in Michigan, where everybody had their own car. I had a truck and a sedan for a time. I mean, it's very much car culture there. In places like Oakland and Berkeley, there's kids who have grown up with Uber and Lyft and other type of services that weren't around when I was there. So it's kind of these new models are really appealing to a younger demographic.
One of the other areas I'm interested in, and I don't expect you to reveal any trade secrets, but if you go through the mathematics, the different options that are available, hourly, by day, different things. And if you start to do the math of the figures, what about the gas? What about the time and effort? What about these different things? How have you been able to appeal to the public in terms of this is a good deal in some of the marketing? And could you take us through a little bit of how you guys determine what the charges would be? And I'm not saying that in any kind of disparaging way. I'm just curious how you figure all that out into the mix.
Yeah, so we wanted the service to be, enough that could be competitive with the other services that were out there. And so with 40 cents per minute or 15 per hour and 85 per day, that takes you pretty competitive when you're talking about, like a ride-sharing type service for your per minute ride. $15 per hour is pretty affordable when you're talking about, kind of where you can go in an hour for a ride-sharing service. Yes. The $85 per day is pretty affordable when you're talking about dealing with rental car services. And so basically, for the amount of time that you use the gig, we determine the lowest cost based on how much time you're using it, and then we automatically apply that. So if you only drive if you only need it for an hour, you're not going to pay more than $15. No matter how far you drive. If you need it for the day, you're not going to pay much more than you would for a regular, a more traditional car rental, except the convenience factor of not having to do the sign up and all the extra fees and the processing. With our service, you pretty much can get in the car within a couple minutes.
Wow.
I've walked outside my door and literally flipped up my phone and was unlocked the car that was around the block from my house. I've done that 20 times, and it takes a minute. So it's really it kind of takes all of that process part out of it.
Does the app give you a sort of a countdown of what it costs as of that moment? So like you're getting close to $75, say, by the hour, and at that point you might go, oh, criminy, I might as well stay another 4 hours and let's go to dinner, and I don't need to be back now. There's no time limit. I can just stay where I'm at.
I don't believe there's any alerts that are built into the program right now, but I could see it that being kind of an interesting thought. But right now, I don't think we have anything in there that does that function.
I see. Okay.
Now, Bruce and his wife Aline are more active on their bicycles than I am with my wife. And Bruce pointed out right away that, of course, you have 2 bike racks, which we also heard, I think, from our first guest, that you could put a kayak on. So the idea of having the bike racks is an attractive thing to people who are active, obviously. Sure. And how did that come to pass, and what kind of reaction have you had from the bike racks?
Yeah, that's actually a huge appeal. There's a huge population in Sacramento, Oakland, Berkeley that a huge biking population, and that's been those alternative transportation options and alternative mobility options have been a big priority for cities that we're targeting our service. And so it was really a natural fit, because we see gig as sort of being a it's a service, right? So it's not the same as owning your own car, but we do want it to be as convenient as owning your own car. And so a lot of our clientele are folks that often bike to work or take public transportation, like in the Bay Area, a lot of folks take BART. I could see, obviously we think one of the big appeals in Sacramento could be near the train station.
Yes.
So just having that ability to, throw your bike on the back of a rental car, take it for, a couple blocks, and then you're in the mountains all day. So that we totally think it's going to appeal, and it really has shown that it's appealed to folks who are more in that active mobility mindset.
Sure, I could see that. Sometimes it's raining in the morning, but it's supposed to clear, so you take the gig car in with the bike on the top, and then you could ride home. Stay dry.
So I often will use a gig. Sometimes if I need to drive from Walnut Creek into Oakland, I'll take a gig into Oakland, and then oftentimes I'll take BART back when the traffic's cleared a little bit. So you can definitely plan around. You can plan a lot better when you have more options. When you don't have to worry about going out to feed the meter or where you left your rental car, because even if that car, let's say you drop it off in front of an office building in Oakland and you come out and that car's gone, the whole purpose of gig is that the service needs to have enough density and enough cars available where, it only takes you a 5-minute walk or less to go find another vehicle. And so by having the amount of cars that we have and the licenses that we have, it creates enough demand that, it can be that convenient.
I have a little confession. When I first saw the gig car here in town, I kept seeing this Chevy Bolt with the Thule racks up on top, and I would look at for days. I thought, I'm seeing this person who has this car everywhere. and then it dawned on me, of course, something else was going on, which is how I looked into it. And then I saw Tony's story and so on and so forth. But for a while, I was just thinking, I can't believe that the coincidence is that wherever every coffee shop, every lunch place I go to, the same person's there. It was incredible. And as a quick follow-up, same area, can you reveal any plans? Suppose a person wanted to take a car on a business trip and they had to go to Los Angeles or out of state. Is the empire going to spread pretty quickly?
Well, you can do that today. We have members who take the cars from the Bay Area to Los Angeles. The only difference is because we don't have a home zone in Los Angeles, you do have to bring the cars back to the Bay Area.
So,
there's no place.
Gotcha.
There's no place right now to leave it and just kind of let it be. In future, we would love to have that flexibility between city to city travel. It's just a matter of kind of how we roll out the program and making sure that we have enough. That the program is doing well in the cities that we're already existing. But obviously, expansion is a key part of how I think the service could work long term, because you're going to want to have that cross city functionality.
Yeah, I think so. I'm glad I asked, because I can see myself, doing an experiment on a longer trip with one of the gig cars, and to see,
Sure.
To detail that would be, pretty interesting. And as an older driver, not being in the category that you're talking about, still some of the things are hard. Even as a person who reviews cars, some of the technology is a little non-intuitive for me. So I think it would be interesting to see just how convenient this is for a family or a family of one to take the car in a longer distance and see how it all worked out.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's really exciting to see. We're really excited to see how the program takes off in Sacramento, and then, obviously with word of mouth and a lot of cities are getting excited for these type of services, we feel like it could really take off to the point where the public has a real demand for these type of services.
Sure.
We feel like our service can fit that. It's more of a congestion battler than, let's say, a rideshare, because you're only using the car for the time that you're actually driving. So if I drive my private car to a parking garage in San Francisco, it's going to sit there for 7-8 hours a day, and
Yes.
then it's taking up a space. Or if you leave it in front of a meter, you're taking up a parking space. With a gig, that car might be used 3 to 4 times in that 8-hour span. So
Yes,
as these services pick up, we think, unlike the ride-sharing services, we're actually going to be able to keep less vehicles on the road. And studies of one-way car-sharing programs like ours show that eventually, with enough usage, that removes between 7 to 10 cars for every one car share, that removes between 7 and 10 cars from the road. So hopefully, as these services do pick up, we can get away from sort of the parking type mentality, and you'll have more cars being used by more people more often.
Yes. Michael, can you describe or tell us some about the insurance aspect, how much coverage you get when you're driving that car, what the coverages are, and do you make any money on that part, or is that a black hole, or is that a good part or an unknown? Because you don't know who you're insuring a lot, right?
And we have insurance partners. Obviously, AAA has a long history as a brand in the auto insurance side. Insurance is included. It's a part of the rate, so we do provide. Our cars are insured by us, but you don't need to necessarily have your own car and your own car insurance to use a gig, because we do provide insurance.
More of a savings. If a person doesn't own a car, why should they have insurance?
But how about a person who, if you're a young kid, that's very expensive insurance? I guess the worse driver you are, this is a better deal, right?
Exactly, and we do provide our insurance is a third-party liability insurance. So basically, it provides you with coverage for any bodily injury or property damages to an accident, whether it's you using the gig car or if you're just a passenger. But basically, you're responsible for a deductible limited to $750 if you damage the car, or it could be as low as $250 if you're a AAA member. So we do have that relationship with the AAA insurance side that allows us to offer more of a deal for AAA members. But we do provide pretty generous car insurance, and obviously, if you're not responsible for the damage or an accident, obviously the person wouldn't be, you wouldn't be liable for that deductible.
In another area, if I have this correctly, I think that we're talking about the Chevrolet Bolt with a B, and the Chevrolet V of the Volt is now discontinued. So the Chevrolet Bolts, I believe, if I understand, when we went to the LA car show a couple of years ago and saw them, the range is about 248, 250, something like that.
Yeah, and our range is
Something
actually
like
over 300 miles right now with the.
Is it?
With the Bolt, with the all-electric version. They're a really cool ride. I would definitely say, if you haven't tried to take a ride in them, that was actually my first ride in an all-electric vehicle, and I was really impressed with the capabilities of the Bolt. And we're really excited that it's the Bolt versus the Volt. We're really happy with our hybrids in the East Bay as well, but our vision for gig car share is to be zero emission and to help actually reduce vehicle miles traveled by gasoline powered vehicles. So we think that this is going to be a really cool and popular service in Sacramento, and we would hope to see other cities get excited for the all electric type deal.
Does the app show how much charge is left in the vehicle? If you knew you wanted to drive to LA, that thing better be topped off, and who tops off the charge? Well,
we do provide reimbursement for any charging. Like, if you're taking the car to LA and need to charge it up, we do provide reimbursement for that. Most of the trips that our members use are typically around town. But yeah, of course, it tells you how much estimated miles you have left. All that is very easy for the user to see. It's all kind of pretty self-explanatory.
Good.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Michael, thank you. As was our first guest, Tony Bizjak, Michael Blaskey, AAA in Northern California, has just provided a wealth of knowledge in the last half hour. I feel like I've got I'm trying to absorb all this.
I want to go do it.
I want to go do it. Yeah, it sounds like just a great thing. And the more I hear about it, the more I realize that it's pretty economical when you get down to it, with all the different things that you get with the car. And I understand that the Chevy Bolts are people who are interested in performance. They really get up and go as well. And you've got all kinds of things with the bike racks and parking where you need to park. And it just sounds like it's all, to use the cliche of win-win, it just sounds win-win. So, Michael, thank you very much. Thank you very much for being our guest on the Weekly Driver podcast. We really appreciate taking the time and explaining this new transportation method that probably going to take off pretty fast, I think.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and let me know after you try the service what you think.
Okay, sure will. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Bye. The Weekly Driver podcast gets support from AmericanMuscle.com, your late model Mustang and F-150 authority, bringing you the hottest products and top-notch customer service for over a decade. No one makes it easier to modify your ride. Visit AmericanMuscle.com today.